October 12, 2007. It's an ordinary afternoon at police headquarters in the Dallas suburb of Garland, Texas. But this routine day is soon disrupted by the arrival of two agents from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs.
Hi, can I help you?
Yeah, we're here to check on a property.
They were investigating a default on a veteran's loan.
Sergeant Doss, can you help them?
Yeah, sure. Come on back here so we can do it for you.
They had gone to the house and contacted a person who had rented the house, had found out that the house was being foreclosed on, and some suspicious circumstances caused them to come to the police department and have us get involved with them.
The homeowner in question is Michael Giles, a retired and decorated NCO for the United States Air Force, whose pending default is cause for concern.
Michael is very disciplined. He was never late on anything. Everything was always up to par and paid.
Michael Giles never missed a VA payment in his life on his home.
This is sister. I hope this helps. Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
When authorities track down Michael's sister Gwen, they are in for a surprise.
Thanks, Miss Haney, for your accommodations.
Oh, sure. No problem.
They asked me the last time I had any contact with my brother, and I told them that the last time I actually saw him was the end of June in 2006.
So you haven't seen your brother for more than a year?
No. Now, we've texted and emailed, but I haven't actually seen him.
Has Michael Giles met some sinister fate? Or is there a more reasonable explanation for his limited communication?
Michael Giles was a very private man. He was always to himself.
In order to resolve this anomaly in an orderly man's life, Texas law enforcement must confront a sordid case of false identity, brazen lawlessness, and cold-hearted betrayal.
It was amazing what this person could do. It was like a puppet master, just pulling all the strings.
Michael Giles was born in 1959 and spent his childhood in Monroe, Louisiana, where he and his 5 siblings made the most of country living.
We actually grew up on my grandmother's farm, gardening and just playing.
Well, we're a fun-loving family. We're a tight-knit family.
When Michael's parents divorced in 1968, the family left behind the rural haven of Louisiana for something more cosmopolitan.
We moved to Dallas because my mom had already relocated here, and then she came back and got us once she got settled here, and she remarried at that time.
Michael had little difficulty adjusting to his new, more fast-paced surroundings.
He was always smiling, joking, having fun.
And as he grew into a young man, that happy-go-lucky outlook developed into one of conviction and duty.
Michael attended Carter High School, and Mike graduated in 1977. All he wanted to ever do was go to the military. And as soon as he graduated from high school, a year later he went into the Air Force.
Michael seemed to do very well in the military. He received many honors.
He did get lots of medals and was honored quite a bit.
While stationed in England in the mid-1990s, Michael's focused discipline was no match for the charms of an attractive young woman on the base named Quinetta Harris.
Juanita, let me introduce you to Michael, good friend of mine.
Hi.
Very nice to meet you, man.
You too.
Michael met Quinetta when he was in the military stationed in England, and at that time she was married to another serviceman.
Quinetta was a very intelligent person. She was a nurse, well-traveled. She was well-spoken.
All right, Mike, we gotta go. You ready to go, baby?
Yeah.
All right, bro. See you. Take care. See you.
Michael was too respectful to make an advance on a married woman. But fate soon did the heart's bidding.
Hey, how are you? How's your day?
Good. How have you been?
Dude, you look really nice.
Oh, really? Thank you.
Thanks for joining me.
No problem.
Quinetta and her husband had some marital problems and split up. During that time, Michael and Quinetta formed a relationship.
What can I get you to drink?
I'll take what you're having.
Sure.
After her and the other guy divorced, Mike went to her ex-husband and asked him if he minded if he dated Quinetta. And he gave him his blessings.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Michael and Quinetta appeared to be an item. They continued their relationship overseas.
But soon the itinerant nature of military life wrought havoc on the romance. And in 1998, Michael retired from the Air Force and returned to Dallas.
He made his way back to Texas, started planting some roots down in Garland, Texas, started working for Southwestern Bell.
But once back home, Michael found Quinnetta hard to forget.
There was allegedly an on-again, off-again relationship between those two, that they would meet up every so often.
She was living in Detroit. He was living here in Texas, but she would visit him.
While smoldering passion burned, the fire eventually fizzled out again, and Michael resolved to lead a comfortable life in the quiet of military retirement.
Michael Giles' discipline when it came to his lifestyle was very meticulous. He saved every dime. He made the right decisions.
But as the years wore on, Michael's family wondered if all the trappings of his success weren't meant to be shared with a special someone.
Michael's home was 3 bedrooms, 2 living areas, formal dining room, and a office.
He had a life that I would be proud to emulate, buying his house, getting his life in order, and then he'll be able to share that with someone special.
When Michael attended a family event in 2006, the arrival of a surprise guest made them wonder if he hadn't already found that special someone after all.
Hey, everybody, this is Pamela.
Michael and Pamela first met during his military days when he had been stationed in New Mexico. They had sensory connected and struck up a relationship.
He introduced her to the aunts and the uncles and nieces and nephews and all that. We really thought that it was a serious relationship.
These first buds of love had to survive the harsh realities of living hundreds of miles apart.
She was a nurse back in New Mexico.
But distance did little to dampen their devotion to each other.
He continued working, but was also spending a lot of time with Pamela. They were seeing each other a lot, especially since they didn't live in the same city.
For Michael to introduce Pamela to our family and have her come and visit him as often as she did, we really thought that they would end up getting married.
But his family now wonders, with fear mounting by the day, if Michael had simply decided to walk away from his picture-perfect life, or if the answer to his disappearance is something more sinister.
It was the money trail that started bringing everything to light, and when the mortgage wasn't being paid, set off all kinds of red flags.
It is autumn 2007 in Garland, Texas, and agents of the Veterans Administration have contacted police after one of their own, Michael Giles, has mysteriously defaulted on a house loan.
Michael had a pretty substantial amount of money saved and was very faithful in making all of his payments on time. And then just abruptly in 2006, they stopped receiving any payments from him.
Interviews with Michael's loved ones confirm for authorities the possibility of something amiss.
The last communication that I had with him was on June 30th.
But the family also indicates that lengthy periods of time without contact was not unusual.
Michael was a private person. Michael sometimes went a few weeks without talking to his family and friends.
He kind of kept to himself if something was bothering him. It's that military thing where I can handle my own.
But even a family accustomed to Michael's habits couldn't deny something strange about their last contact.
Hello? The last time they had seen Michael was at the end of June. And he was supposed to come over on July 4th for a cookout. They received a call saying that he was not going to be able to attend this cookout.
Oh, is everything okay?
Michael always attended our family gatherings, especially on holidays, because he loved to eat.
Okay, baby, well, call me back, all right? Bye.
As the months rolled by, the family describes having to subsist on only the barest scraps of communication.
The family would continue to try to reach out to Michael via email and text message. Sometimes they would get responses back that were just very short. I'm okay. That's about it. No detailed explanation of where he's been, what he's been doing, nothing of that nature.
Until one day in early 2007, when Michael's mother got a phone call.
Her phone rang from Michael's cell phone number.
Michael?
But it wasn't Michael on the line.
There was a lady called and said that she was calling from a cruise ship and that Mike had dropped his phone leaving off the boat.
A cruise?
Yes, he and his lovely wife.
His wife?
She said that him and his wife were getting off the boat and he dropped his phone and to let him know that she would turn it into the steward.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
The family breathed a collective sigh of relief.
After receiving that phone call, I called my sister and I told her, I said, Mike's gone off and gotten married.
We didn't know because of that privacy level he kept.
You think him and Pam finally hitched up and he didn't let us know anything about it?
I don't know.
But when VA agents contact Pamela via law enforcement in New Mexico, the answer isn't what they had hoped.
I haven't been on a cruise, and Michael's not my husband. He was my boyfriend.
Okay. When was the last time you were in Dallas?
Maybe over a year ago?
The fact that Pamela hadn't seen Michael in so long was disturbing, because they were just starting to get serious around the time that he was last seen by his family. And have you recently seen Michael?
Not since the last time I went to Dallas. And then he sent me a text message saying that he needed some space and some time to think over things.
Pamela was heartbroken that Michael had cut her off cold turkey. Eventually, she decided to move on with her life.
In October of 2007, with suspicious elements mounting, agents make the recommendation that Michael's family had been fearing.
They informed me that I needed to file a missing person report, which was very concerning to me. Something must be wrong.
With Michael's disappearance now officially a police matter, investigators, led by Garland Detective Gary Sweet, expand their search. And what they find quickly takes them into unknown territory.
When we checked his financial records, we found that all the money that was coming out of his accounts were coming out in the Detroit, Michigan area.
It's a development that shifts attention away from Michael's former flame, Pamela, in New Mexico.
She was eliminated as a suspect. There was nothing there to lead us to Pamela.
But the flurry of financial activity in Detroit gives Detective Sweet his first concrete lead.
Hello?
Yes, Gwen, Detective Sweet. Would there be any reason why Michael is sending money to Detroit for a co-applicant by the name of 𝐄𝐏𝐻𝐒 Harris?
When investigators make a trip to Detroit, they'll uncover a shocking secret that suggests Michael may very well still be alive.
His friends never knew, his family never knew. Everyone was baffled.
48 hours after Michael Giles is listed as missing, detectives have discovered a promising new lead in his personal records, a lead steering them towards Detroit and away from their initial suspect, Michael's former girlfriend, Pamela Stone.
We checked his records, and 𝐄𝐏𝐻𝐒 Harris in Detroit, Michigan was on his bank accounts. 𝐄𝐏𝐻𝐒 worked as a nurse's aide at a nursing home.
Authorities are surprised to discover that Michael's family had never heard of such a significant figure in his life.
He never mentioned her. He never said one thing about her.
Okay, thank you.
Is it possible Michael Giles had simply left his previous life behind in Garland and started anew?
We had to look at everything. I mean, could he have moved to Detroit and be living with 𝐄𝐏𝐻𝐒? Absolutely.
I'm going to have to go to Detroit, find out where this money's going.
Detective Sweet flies to Detroit to make contact with 𝐄𝐏𝐻𝐒 at her home on the east side of town.
Hi. Are you 𝐄𝐏𝐻𝐒 Harris?
Yes, I am.
I introduced myself to her. I'm an investigator from Garland, Texas, and I'm investigating a missing person. Told her it was Michael Giles, and she said, yes, I know Michael.
Michael and 𝐄𝐏𝐻𝐒 met when Michael was in the Air Force. She was married to a subordinate of his.
After she had divorced her husband and Mr. Giles had pursued her, they had a relationship.
At some point after he moved back from England, Michael and 𝐄𝐏𝐻𝐒 had broken up. She had gone back to Michigan, and Michael pursued other love interests.
When Detective Sweet inquires about Michael's financial records, 𝐄𝐏𝐻𝐒 drops a bombshell.
Is there any reason why he's supporting you financially?
Yes, we have a child together.
She said that they had a daughter together and that Michael had put her on these accounts as child support.
Michael's family had never mentioned him having a child.
And where is that child?
Oh, she's at school, but she does live with me.
So you haven't had any contact with him, is that correct?
No, he really just helps out financially to provide for our child.
𝐄𝐏𝐻𝐒 said that Michael had worked it out with the bank in Michigan so that it would be easier for her to access the funds for their child.
It seems a reasonable explanation, but detectives will still need to confirm 𝐄𝐏𝐻𝐒's story. With suspicion swirling, detectives head 90 miles west of Detroit to a bank that handles some of Michael's accounts. There, they sit down with a financial advisor named Donald Eberly.
Hey, I've got to go.
Hi, stick to suite.
Donald Everly?
Happen to handle Michael Giles' finances?
I advise him on his finances, yes.
And you ever heard of a lady by the name of Juanita Harris?
Yes, Miss Harris came in here wanting power of attorney over his estate.
Juanita Harris contacts Donald Eberly in East Lansing, Michigan, and presents this power of attorney that is signed by Michael Giles.
Michael Giles needed to appear in front of people and actually sign documents that could be witnessed and notarized.
And I explained to her that she needed to have him present in order to make the transfer.
Hunter responds that Michael is ill. He was involved in a car crash and subsequently had a stroke.
She explains to him that, well, he's basically bedridden. So Donald says, well, then I can go to your home and he can do it there. So she agrees to this.
So I actually met with him right at the bedside, and he got the paperwork done.
What date was that?
I believe that was September 29th, 2006.
And you saw him that day?
Yeah, of course. He had trouble talking, but he was able to get the necessary paperwork done.
Michael Giles basically signed over financial and personal history to Quinetta.
The financial advisor's story basically matched up to what Quinetta told police. And it also suggested that Michael was alive about 3 months after his family last saw him.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, officer.
Detectives return to Dallas, satisfied that Quinetta's circumstance necessitates shared finances. At the same time, they still wonder why Michael stopped payment on his property if he was alive for all that time.
What often happens with something traumatic, like an accident or a sickness, is that people fall out of their normal routine. They might even fall behind on their bills. Certainly this could have happened with Michael.
As they begin poring over reports of police activity in Michael's neighborhood, detectives stumble upon another new lead, a 911 call that came from Michael's neighbor on the evening of July 5th, 2006, soon after Michael was last seen by his family.
The next-door neighbor had called in and said there were 2 pickups and several Hispanic males loading her neighbor's furniture into the trucks.
Hi, I'd like to report some suspicious activity.
The neighbor made note of the license plate number of the moving truck while police were on their way.
Okay, thank you.
While she is out watching the vehicles, waiting on the police to arrive, a woman comes out of the house and comes over and stated that she was the new owner of the house.
Hi, I'm the homeowner from next door. Did we disturb you at all?
She says she was just selling some furniture.
The situation seemed to have already resolved itself by the time police arrived.
Didn't know, just trying to be neighborly.
They had also spoken to the lady that said she owned the house, and no, there was no suspicion, so everything was good.
But now, over a year later, detectives suspect there was more to this call than initially met the eye. They tracked down the license plate number of the vehicle that was in the driveway that night.
I ran the tags for the van. Came back belonging to Francisco Vacuna.
Bring him in. I want to talk to him.
Okay.
We made contact with him. He went by the nickname Vic, and he did remember going over there.
Thanks for coming in, Mr. Vacuna.
Francisco Vicuna describes for police a curious encounter he had when an unnamed woman approached him on the block about purchasing furniture.
My family and I were out in that area trimming trees, doing some landscaping.
This woman approached them, asking them if they wanted to buy the furniture. And they bought every piece of furniture in the house for $300.
Only $300?
Yes, $300 for all of it.
But the furniture purchase was not the end of the transaction with this mysterious woman. And what Mr. Vicuna says next will have police scrambling for an explanation.
As we were about to leave, she asked if we would do a side job for her.
She asked if any of them would dig a hole for her in the backyard.
Francisco says they agreed to dig the hole.
We were anxious to know where he dug that hole at in that backyard, so we asked him if he would be able to show us, and he said he would.
And what Francisco shows them will give investigators their first concrete evidence.
It was about the size, could fit about a 6-foot person.
The case took a turn as soon as they dug up that slab.
If there's any time that your family members are not accountable or not where they're supposed to be, then move and go find them, look for them, do something, because they're either probably crying out to you, especially when they're MIA, missing in action, or don't sound like they're supposed to sound. Move.
6 days after former Air Force officer Michael Giles is reported missing, investigators are pursuing a new lead. According to a man named Francisco Vicuna, aka Vic, someone claiming to be the owner of Michael Giles' house hired Vic and his uncle to dig a large hole in the backyard. Vic leads detectives to the house, where they find a strange addition to the hole that had been dug.
They found this mysterious slab, a 4-inch slab of concrete that's not in the ground like a sidewalk, a slab above the ground like maybe you'd set something like an AC unit on. But it wasn't the right size, and in the location it made no sense whatsoever.
It looked totally different than the other cement, and it wasn't there before.
Detectives now suspect they are onto something big. But while authorities gather resources to search the house and property, detectives need to be sure of one thing: the identity of the woman who ordered the hole to be dug.
One of the individuals that bought the furniture, he was shown what we call in Texas a 6-photo lineup. Quinetta Harris was in that 6-photo lineup, and he picked her out immediately as the person who had sold him the furniture.
Law enforcement has their suspect.
Every single thing we found with Michael Giles came back to Quinetta Harris.
But until they locate what's under that concrete slab, they're not yet sure what the crime is. On October 19, 2007, a week after Michael Giles has been listed as a missing person, Garland police, in cooperation with the FBI, begin poking around Michael's backyard.
The Garland Police Department got permission to search the property, took a K-9 unit out there, and specifically led the K-9 around the area of the oddly poured concrete slab.
They brought a metal rod with a handle and a sharp point and went around the yard and poked holes all through the yard. And then they had the dog go around and sniff the holes. The dog pretty much ran over every hole there until it got to the slab, and then it started pawing at the ground and sort of digging a little bit. The dog was interested in underneath there.
He's got a positive alert over here.
An alerted K-9 unit gives the investigative team the go-ahead to excavate the slab. As the excavation begins, Detective Sweet and his team are in Detroit, ready to move on their prime suspect, Quinetta Harris.
The news was also out there, and if somehow she found out that this is being excavated and she knows that he's there, our fear was that she may try to flee.
It isn't long before the excavation turns up a sure sign of the macabre.
They could smell decomposed human flesh. That's a pretty distinct smell. And they were smelling decomposition. So we know now for sure we've got a grave.
While the FBI evidence team is out there excavating, they find a decomposed body wrapped in a blanket with a throw pillow also in this grave.
They are able, on field examination, to see that there is a bullet wound to the head.
Michael was later identified by his dental records through the Department of Veterans Affairs.
Michael's family reels in the wake of this astonishing development.
It was a blow that was gut-wrenching to find out that he had been buried in his backyard for over a year. And to know that I actually went by and knocked on the door, and he was there. He was just back there killed.
Meanwhile in Detroit, Detective Sweet's team gets word of the gruesome discovery, and they make their move.
We found a body.
Once the discovery of the body was made, Detective Sweet then was able to arrest Quinetta.
But before detectives can be sure they've caught their perp, an individual will come forward with an alarming admission that will have everyone scratching their heads.
A lawyer states, "I have a client who claims to have killed Michael Giles."
October 19th, 2007. After police and FBI exhume Michael Giles from a makeshift grave behind his own house, his former girlfriend, Quinetta Harris, is taken into custody without incident. But under questioning, she resolutely maintains her innocence.
When I confronted her and told her that we had her identified as the person selling the furniture, she still denied.
One of the neighbors who was there basically identified you and said you were there and some Hispanic guys were moving the furniture out.
Me?
Mm-hmm.
They picked you out of a 6-picture lineup.
The conversation then went to the concrete slab that she had poured.
You go to Texas to have concrete? No, I didn't. No. Coach.
Finally, I told her that that concrete slab was being torn up, and she sat very quietly looking at me, and I said, and we dug that up, and I told her, I said, Michael's not missing anymore.
Michael was under that concrete slab that you had poured down there.
I didn't have that poured down.
And that hole that you had dug.
I didn't have that hole dug.
You're in a lot of trouble.
While Quinnetta remains in custody at the station, detectives execute a search on her home and uncover a treasure trove of incriminating research and correspondence.
Detectives recovered cell phones, computers, records, anything that you can imagine that linked her to this crime and linked her to Michael Giles.
Authorities also find the power of attorney document granting Quinnetta access to Michael's accounts, signed by Michael in September of 2006. But investigators know he had already been deceased at this time. How could a dead man sign a legal document?
We found that this was notarized by a lady in the Detroit area, and we made a point to locate this lady to ask her who signed these papers.
The notary is Detroit resident Patricia Turner, who police contact at her place of work.
Ms. Turner.
I tell her that I'm investigating a murder, and she is very uncooperative.
Ms. Turner, there are serious implications falsifying legal documents. Now, we can make your life very difficult for you if you don't cooperate. You need to tell me who signed Michael Giles' name in this document.
She was very cooperative after that. Told me who it was.
DeAndre Knight. Detectives have never heard the name DeAndre Knight. Who was this mysterious man?
This was Quinnetta's common-law husband.
Investigators are shocked to learn that Michael Giles hadn't been the only man in Quinnetta's life at the time of his murder.
We'll be in touch.
This is a pretty intricate, detailed, plotted scam.
This eye-opening admission arms law enforcement with a provocative new theory. In collusion with DeAndre Knight, Quinnetta Harris had gone to extraordinary lengths to milk the murdered Michael Giles for all he was worth. The plan involved duping Michigan financial advisor Donald Eberly.
They rented out like a hospital bed, had him in full bandages, had him where he could barely speak. She had a notary there.
He pretended he had a stroke. This was DeAndre, and he signs this information in front of Donald Eberly.
It is a stunning revelation. But as authorities begin their investigation of DeAndre Knight, the situation back in Texas has taken a turn for the bizarre.
Quinnetta was able to post a $500,000 bond.
While Quinnetta is out on bond, a lawyer contacts Josh Healy at the district attorney's office and states, I have a client who claims to have killed Michael Giles.
The client is 19-year-old Dallas resident Erica Flores.
Erica Flores arrived at the district attorney's office to speak with Josh and Detective Sweet in regards to the murder of Michael Giles.
I had to keep asking her to speak up because she was just so soft-spoken. Finally got the story out of her that she was with two friends of hers by the name of Juan and Vic. Juan and Vic were names that were actually partly involved. They did dig the hole.
Vic and Juan had picked me up and we were smoking, and they wanted to rob a man at Walmart in Garland. And then they followed him home, and then put shirts over our head and pushed him in the house. When Victor came and gave me the gun and told me to shoot him. And after that, put the body in the bathroom and we left.
In order to verify a story that could change the face of a major murder case, Detective Sweet ensures that Erica's version of events jives with the evidence they collected in the field.
So I told her, you're going to have to give me a little bit more detail than that. So, I mean, how did you kill him? She says, I shot him in the head.
They gave me the pillow, and he held the pillow while I shot him.
But as the questioning gets more detailed, Erica's replies became more suspect.
I said, I know you're lying. And we went through that, and she broke and admitted that the story wasn't true.
Once they started showing me the pictures of the guy and how he was buried, that's when I just started telling them I met a lady earlier, and she asked me to come here and say all this.
When Erica's mother, Elizabeth, is contacted, she's shocked by her daughter's confession.
The police came to my house, said your daughter been convicted of murder. I said, no, that's a lie. That's not true.
Elizabeth agrees to come down to the station where her daughter is still being held. After detectives explain the situation, they separate the two of them and conduct further questioning.
From the beginning, how did you first get started with this situation?
A lady called me yesterday.
I was at home and I received a phone call. Hello?
Hi, is this Erica?
And she was offering me a job to be a private investigator.
We're investigating the systematic racism in the court system here in Dallas, and we're wondering if you'd like to help with this worthy cause. Can we meet for an interview?
I had been doing a lot of job applications online. So when I got the call, I was just like, thinking, hey, I got a job offer. It seemed to be official, so that's why I went to the interview.
I'll let you know how it is.
Okay.
During the interview at El Centro College in downtown Dallas, the woman Erica met with laid out a plan that Erica couldn't have known might have landed her in prison.
She introduced a letter that she had pre-wrote, and she had me to copy everything down. She told me the people that I would be meeting, and she told me to basically act like I did.
Detectives are floored by Erica's story. They leave the room to go speak with her mother, Elizabeth. As detectives explain the details of the crime to which her daughter had confessed, Elizabeth makes a disturbing connection.
And the light bulb goes off for Elizabeth. That sounds like Quinnetta Harris.
You know,
I know how she looks.
According to Elizabeth, while she was serving time in jail on drug charges, she befriended Quinnetta, who was in custody awaiting trial.
I was in jail with her, and she told me her story.
I did 5 months, and she did like 2-3 months.
how many conversations do you think you guys had?
Numerous. We traveled late at night.
She just started being my friend, buying me stuff, then started asking me how many kids and stuff I got.
She was asking me questions about y'all in jail, so I was in jail, and why she keep asking me stuff about my kids?
What kind of questions about your kids?
Keep asking me how old was they. What you say their name is again?
Once Quinnetta Harris posted bond, she put her plan to frame young Erica Flores into motion.
Somehow she got my home number.
She's very shrewd, this lady is, to have her pull that off. We'll get her back in here and let you guys get home.
After releasing Erica Flores and her mother, Quinnetta is swiftly returned to custody, this time without bond.
She was arrested for violating condition of her bond, to have no communications, interference with the case.
But even though Quinnetta Harris is now in the hands of law enforcement, she's not going down without a fight.
This woman just wouldn't stop. She was still trying to manipulate the situation, even from jail.
In April 2008, police discovered that Quinnetta Harris had coerced a young woman named Erica Flores to confess to the murder of Michael Giles.
Quinnetta had manipulated this young girl as a last-ditch effort to get out of jail. Once the detectives connected the dots, they arrested her again, this time without bond.
Quinnetta Harris waits in jail for a year and a half, and on October 6, 2009, she faces a jury of her peers as the state lays out a case of prodigious greed turned deadly.
Quinnetta, she killed him for everything. She wanted all that he had, and she was going to do anything to get it.
Prosecutors argue that Quinnetta waited for the perfect moment to execute her plan as she visited Michael in his home.
At some point, Michael's asleep on that couch. Quinnetta approaches with the gun, covers his head with that pillow, and shoots one time into his head. After that, she wraps up his body, puts it in one of the other rooms of the home. She has the grave dug in the backyard, goes back to Detroit, basically assumes his identity, empties his bank accounts.
From that point forward, Quinnetta went to great lengths to make it seem Michael was still alive.
Hello? We found out that she actually murdered him on July the 3rd, and that on July 4th, my mom did not talk to my brother, but to Quinetta, who had purchased a voice-changing machine.
Prosecutors also claim it was Quinetta who made the call to Michael's family, posing as a cruise ship patron who had found Michael's lost phone.
She made the phone call using his phone to keep us quiet down.
And Quinetta's twisted string of lies didn't stop there.
Quinetta had told Detective Sweet that her youngest child was my brother's child, and we found out that that was not true.
It was just totally unbelievable. I couldn't believe that a person can just stoop so low.
When defense attorneys take the floor, they suggest to the jury that Quinetta's boyfriend, DeAndre Knight, was a far more likely suspect.
It was her position that there was a confrontation between Michael and DeAndre, that resolved itself in Michael being killed. There could have been the jealousy, love triangle going on.
But as the trial progresses, it becomes clear that evidence strongly favors the state.
Case against Quinetta was like an avalanche. I mean, it starts with a snowball, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and by the time the state was finished, this was just an avalanche of snow coming right at Quinetta Harris.
Quinetta's defense team is not so lucky.
No witnesses showed up. Not one single person showed up on her behalf.
But Quinetta is banking on the absence of the one person who can testify to her elaborate scheme of gaining control of Michael's assets.
When we started the trial, DeAndre Knight was not to be found.
DeAndre is the link between Quinetta and the money and how she accessed that money.
The state isn't about to let their prize witness go without a fight.
We went up to Detroit. We went and yanked him up there and flew him back for trial. And he was about to testify against Quinetta because we were going to charge him with everything.
We did file charges on him for his part in the forgeries.
They were about to have the star witness come down there and look at her and say, "You did this. And I was there. I know you did this." She knew that at that point, the only thing she can do is plead guilty and hope for something other than a life sentence.
On October 12th, Quinetta Harris takes a plea deal, and the trial is stopped.
The plea agreement was that she plead guilty for murder and she would be sentenced to 50 years.
DeAndre Knight also takes a plea deal.
He did plead guilty and took a plea. He didn't do any time. He got probation and basically banned from the state of Texas.
Quinetta is remanded to federal prison, but for a justice system anxious to close the book on this bizarre case, one final twist awaits.
When Quinetta was officially sentenced, we thought that was the last we'd see of Quinetta Harris, but we were wrong.
In early 2016, authorities received startling news from the Department of Criminal Justice.
Quinetta Harris had been in prison almost 8 years, and there is a motion filed on behalf of Quinetta Harris. Her sentence was changed from 50 years to 8 years, meaning Quinetta Harris would get out of prison in about a month or two. It was signed by the new district judge, Judge Amber Gibbons.
Somehow the prison officials saw this and didn't think that was right.
Prison officials contacted the court and found out that the judge's signature had been forged, and the document was a fake.
It was a brazen bid for freedom by a person unpricked by conscience and heedless of the law.
In my 17 years of law enforcement, I've seen and come across a lot of things, worked a lot of cases. I have never seen a case like this.
Quinetta Harris is quite possibly the most dangerous, most egotistical, diabolical person I've ever dealt with in the criminal justice field.
But the law will now confine Quinetta Harris. It's Friday, November 19th, 2010 in Memphis, Tennessee. 50-year-old Jacqueline Smith is in a panic as she's been desperately trying to locate her 21-year-old daughter, Jacqueline Miller, for several days.
LaDonna, I'm so glad you're here. I still haven't heard anything from Jacqueline. Oh, what? This is so unlike her. I haven't spoken to her since Tuesday, not even a phone call.
Well, it's not like her to just wander away and never call and be gone for that long period of time.
Jacqueline's sister, LaDonna Garfield, is equally concerned about the welfare of her niece.
I kept calling her, kept texting her. I called all of her friends. You know, they started calling around and texting, and we didn't hear anything.
As the women reach out to young Jacqueline's entire circle of friends for clues to where she might be, they become increasingly concerned. There's no sign of her anywhere, even at the beauty salon where she's employed.
Her supervisor called us and saying Jacqueline hadn't been to work, and it was very unusual of her not to go to work because she loved her job.
The two women immediately decide it's time to call the Memphis police and report young Jacqueline missing.
They tried to make me wait. I'm like, no, I can't wait 24 more hours. She's missing, and she's been missing for a few days.
It's very common for adults in their 20s to go missing for a while, to disappear, but 99 times out of 100, they come back safe and sound.
You don't understand. That's not how my daughter is at all. Ask if you can speak with someone else.
These women, they were fairly persistent, and they were able to get some help ahead of the standard police timeline.
Sergeant Kathy Gooden, a missing persons investigator, is assigned to the case.
When's the last time you seen Jacqueline?
I thought it was just my typical missing persons case, and I thought she was just going to be gone for a couple of days and then return home.
But when Jacqueline's disappearance enters its third day, Sergeant Gooden begins to think Jacqueline might be in serious trouble.
I called Jacqueline's supervisor, and he said that if she doesn't show up to get her paycheck on Saturday, then it would be a concern. She will not miss picking up her paycheck.
When the day comes and goes, the police start to think, hey, something really bad might have happened here. So they launch a missing persons investigation.
But to learn the truth about what happened to Jacqueline, investigators would have to rely on anonymous tipsters, terrified witnesses, anxious family members, and old-fashioned, hard-nosed detective work.
The whole thing was horrible, but something that people were very, very interested in, and they wanted to know what happened to that young woman.
Jacqueline Miller was born on June 22, 1989, the only child of Jacqueline Smith.
She was a loving little girl. When she walked through the room, she lights the whole room up.
She loved the color pink, so her friends started out calling her Pinky. It became a nickname for her.
As a small child, she didn't have very many friends.
She wore glasses, she had the braces, and her friends used to mess with her and tease her and call her Big Mouth.
But this all changed as Jacqueline entered her teen years and began spending time with her Aunt LaDonna.
She was my niece, but she became my baby. And we did everything together. My grandmother would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and get fully dressed, hair, makeup, jewelry. That was something she instilled in me as a child. And I did that with Jacqueline as a child.
Oh, that is so cute.
Jacqueline soon went from being a wallflower to a confident, beautiful young woman.
It was just like she blossomed. She went from Jackie with the glasses to just this beautiful young adult.
Have you ever thought about doing something just different with your hair? Like, I was thinking if we take the front part, okay, and we pin this way.
I like where you're going with this.
The time spent with her Aunt LaDonna cultivated a dream in Jacqueline of one day becoming a beautician, a vision she shared with her best friend and cousin, Janice Reed.
We had plans on making a career of doing hair and open up our own salon.
After graduating high school, Jacqueline and Janice took the first steps toward fulfilling their dream by enrolling in the New Wave Hair Academy. Jacqueline was so focused on making her dream come true that she rarely had time for dating.
She wasn't interested in guys. She always wanted to keep her head straight for her school and her career.
But that changed in May 2009 when Jacqueline met 22-year-old classmate Richard Dickerson.
They were taking the same class together at the same time, same module. He immediately, took to her personality, and she took to his.
That looks amazing.
Thank you.
You mind giving me some pointers?
Sure.
At 6 feet 5 inches tall, Richard towered over the petite, bubbly Jacqueline.
Jackie liked tall, lean, athletic built guys, and he really fit into that category.
He would open her door, to let her in the car and all of that. So I was thinking, okay, maybe he's a good one.
But after 6 months of going steady, Jacqueline wondered if she needed to broaden her dating horizons.
She never completely broke things off with Richard. She wanted things to be a little bit more casual. So she had the option of dating other people without too much drama. Honestly, she really didn't date anyone else, but she liked to have that door open.
Well, Richard wasn't crazy about this, but it wasn't like she was going out with every guy that had asked her out, so he put up with it, thinking she'd get it out of her system in time.
Richard and Jacqueline continued their casual arrangement throughout their time at New Wave Academy. After graduating near the top of her class, Jacqueline took a position at a salon where her styling skills garnered widespread acclaim.
Everyone in the city knew who Pinky was because they wanted Pinky to do their hair.
We were just so excited. It was very important to both of us.
But just when it seemed things couldn't be going better for Jacqueline, she disappeared. It's now been 4 days, and there's no sign of where she might be. As the hours pass, her family is beginning to fear the worst.
Jacqueline's family is really starting to get concerned as the odds of finding her safe and sound diminish. Everyone's asking the same question: where did Jacqueline Miller go?
Sunday, November 21st, 2010. It's been 4 days since talented 21-year-old hairdresser Jacqueline Miller went missing. While the Memphis PD has moved quickly to open a missing persons investigation, they aren't 100% positive that anything bad has happened to Jacqueline.
I have covered a lot of cases where families call, and they do say they would never do this. And they did do it. They just took off and didn't let their family know.
She's kind of a homebody, family-oriented person, but it was not uncommon for her to spend a night out, and she would spend a night out sometimes.
Even so, Police Sergeant Kathy Gooden is doing everything she can to pinpoint Jacqueline's whereabouts. One of her first moves is to contact Jacqueline's on-again, off-again boyfriend, Richard Dickerson.
Thanks for coming in to meet me.
Anything to help. Nothing's happened to her, hasn't it?
Richard Dixon was very concerned when I spoke to him.
He's very distraught and tells Sergeant Gooden that he'd been searching for Jacqueline on his own for several days, and he also said that he'd been searching alongside her family as well.
Richard was calling constantly, talking to her aunt, LaDonna, and he would call every day and say, have you heard from her?
When's the last time you saw her?
Monday. Well, actually Tuesday.
Richard said that Jacqueline spent the night with him on Monday night. Tuesday, she got up earlier than usual. She took a shower. Everything was great. She was in a good mood. And she left for work Tuesday morning.
And that was the last time you saw her?
Yeah, she was supposed to come over Wednesday, but she never did.
And was that typical of her?
Yeah, she likes to keep me guessing. So.
Richard admitted his tendency to get clingy, and he also said Jackie would sometimes flake on him intentionally to try to get him to stop.
Was she seeing any other men that you know of?
Not that I know of. Jacqueline would talk a good game about dating other people, but her career was the most important thing to her. The salon was everything.
Sergeant Gooden pushes Richard for any additional information and for signs he might not be telling the truth.
In a missing persons case, the spouse or significant other of the person missing is usually one of the first people investigated.
I did believe that Richard was sincere about Jacqueline being missing.
He was genuine. He acted like he wanted to try to help us and find out what was happening with Jacqueline and all that. During the course of interviewing Richard, he provided several possible alibis of where he might have been. Of course, Sergeant Gooden wanted to follow up on those leads.
Well, here's my card. Let me know if you hear anything else.
I will.
After speaking with Richard Dickerson, Sergeant Gooden can't help but wonder if Jacqueline had been the victim of a random crime.
Maybe she was driving down the street and got carjacked. Maybe she was at an ATM and got robbed. The theories are endless.
Adding credence to this idea is the fact that the area between Richard's house and Jacqueline's work has a reputation as a fairly dangerous part of town.
There's a lot of crime that happens over in that area. I used to work out there at night, and I didn't leave out of there alone.
Unfortunately, there are people that are just crazy killers. There are people that are sexual predators, and they will go on rape and leave their victim in another state.
I activated a city watch alert. I got the information on Jacqueline's vehicle, and I created a bolo. Be on the lookout for Jacqueline's vehicle. I wanted to get this information to the media as soon as possible.
In conjunction with the search efforts made by young Jacqueline's aunt and mother, it doesn't take long for the media blitz to yield a new lead.
I got a call from an individual who say that several days after Jacqueline was reported missing, he actually saw her and a male in the Orange Mountain area.
Orange Mound, it's a pillar in Memphis, but let's be honest, it can be real rough.
It was a very high drug infested prostitution area.
The sighting suggests that Jacqueline is still alive, but what was she doing in the Orange Mound area?
Nothing made any sense. This woman was missing. Anything could have happened.
And who was the mystery man with whom she'd allegedly been spotted?
Police had to find this man. He was the key to finding Jacqueline.
Police in Memphis, Tennessee are investigating the disappearance of 21-year-old beautician Jacqueline Miller. After a mass canvassing effort, Detective Kathy Gooden has just received an anonymous tip regarding Jacqueline's whereabouts.
Hello?
She was with someone right in the middle of Orange Mountain, and a lot of drugs go through that area. A lot of problems go through that area.
Nobody could understand why she would be there and why she would be with some strange man.
You saw her yesterday in Orange Mountain. How are you sure it was Jacqueline? What did the man look like? Hello? Hello?
But the tipster hangs up before he gives the police any really useful information beyond where the sighting took place and that the caller believes that the man was a gang member.
The good news is, if the tip is accurate, that means there's a good chance Jacqueline's alive. The bad news is Orange Mound is rife with prostitution and drugs and gangs.
Sergeant Gooden follows up with her informants in the Orange Mound area, but none of them have any information about Jacqueline or the mystery man seen with her. But the sergeant has better luck when she circles back with LaDonna Garfield to make sure Jacqueline wasn't involved in any illicit activity.
She was not into drugs and all kinds of things. She wasn't a troubled person.
But LaDonna believes it's possible Jacqueline's disappearance could be gang-related.
She was receiving phone calls from Jacqueline's friends, and some of the friends told her that several gang members may have been involved in Jacqueline's disappearance.
Okay, did any of her friends give you any names of these gang members?
Yes, we're going to go meet with one right now.
You're going to meet with one of the gang members?
Yeah.
We were actually contacted by one of her friends that she had gone to high school with. He told me that he had been seeing her walk around in their neighborhood, which was very strange because that was something that Jacqueline was not into.
LaDonna explains she was told by Jacqueline's friend to meet him in person for more information and not to come empty-handed.
He said, if you give me $900, I'll go get her. And I said, tell me where she is. He said, you can't go there because it's too dangerous. I will bring her back alive.
And I told Donald, look, let the police handle the investigations. You do not know who these people are. These are known gang members.
Why don't you let us handle this?
Okay, but please don't do anything that could put Jacqueline at risk. I want to see my niece again.
Jacqueline's aunt gives her the man's information, and Gooden arranges a meeting with his gang contacts for that afternoon.
Have you guys heard of Jacqueline Miller?
Yeah, a little cute chick. Yeah, I seen her with some friends of my cousin.
They seem at first to know some information about Jacqueline.
Yeah, it's the chick with the jeans on, you know, blue jeans. Yeah, she drive that green car. It's a photo.
Okay, well, her family's looking for her.
I mean, is there a reward or something?
But after interviewing a couple of them, I realized that they didn't know anything about Jacqueline's disappearance.
Turns out almost every detail these guys were telling police came right off the missing persons poster or was something they'd seen in the news. What she was wearing, what kind of car she was driving, everything.
They were basically trying to extort money from the family.
What's up with this $900 though?
I got an idea. Why don't I arrest both of you for extortion and false information to police? How about that?
Oh, hold on, lady. Shoot, we trying to help you out. Yeah, I mean, we do know people that know where she is.
The two men claim they know Jacqueline's boyfriend, but as they're describing him, it becomes clear they're not talking about Richard Dickerson.
Contrary to what Richard believes, there certainly is another love interest in his girlfriend's life, and that is Malik Davis.
Malik Davis was an old-school friend of Jacqueline Miller's, and he bumped into her at the salon by accident. But when he sees how beautiful she's become over the years, he starts pursuing her romantically.
Like Richard, he's also pretty tall and lean, over 6 feet. So physically, Malik was her type.
They started hanging out, and he actually wanted things to get more serious, but again, Jacqueline wanted to keep things casual.
While the relationship may not have been serious, it was definitely hot and heavy.
This revelation leads Gooden and the Memphis police to wonder if Jacqueline's disappearance was somehow connected to her relationship with Malik Davis, or Richard Dickerson, or both.
While Richard Dickerson had been removed from police suspicion, he hadn't been cleared entirely. Is it possible he learned about Malik and then unleashed a jealous rage on the woman he loved?
Likewise, it's not unrealistic to assume that maybe Malik was unaware of her relationship with Richard, and that when he found out about it, he acted out in some violent way.
Malik.
That same afternoon, Sergeant Gooden tracks down Malik Davis.
I understand that you and Jacqueline Miller were romantically involved.
I guess you could say that, yeah.
And when's the last time you spoke or saw her?
Tuesday. We went out for some drinks, had a pretty good time. I was actually supposed to get up with her Wednesday, but I haven't heard from her.
Wednesday? Are you sure?
He agreed that yes, she was supposed to see me, but she was no call, no show. So he actually did not see Jacqueline.
This is notable because this is also the same day and time that she was supposed to meet up with Richard, but didn't make it.
So now Sergeant Gooden can't help but wonder, which one of these men did Jacqueline Miller really intend to see that night?
And you haven't spoken with her since?
No. Is she all right? I've been trying to call her for a couple of days now.
Like Richard, Malik was incredibly cooperative with police. He seemed legitimately concerned.
But is it possible that one of these young men is lying to police?
Malik tells Gooden he was at home alone during the time period that police were questioning him about. But without a verifiable alibi, he seems like more of a viable suspect than Richard Dickerson did.
The only way to really vet Malik's location is to collect his cell phone information. It wouldn't tell police if he was with anyone, but it would certainly verify with whom he was communicating and where he was.
Police submit a warrant to obtain Malik's phone records. But while they wait for a judge to approve it, they get another anonymous tip. One that may point to a possibility beyond either of Jacqueline's known lovers.
Someone said they'd seen Jacqueline's car parked at an apartment complex about a mile from where she worked. Had she met someone new?
Will this be another dead end? Or will what police find completely alter the course of the investigation?
As a journalist, the question from that point is no longer where is she, but how did this happen?
Six days after 21-year-old Jacqueline Miller was reported missing, police in Memphis, Tennessee receive a tip that her car has been spotted parked in an apartment complex roughly a mile from the hair salon where she worked.
This looks like it.
With it backed into the parking space, it becomes just a nondescript vehicle with no unusual markings, and no one can read the license plate because it's backed up against a fence.
But when officers get a closer look at the tag, they can see it well enough to run a check on it. And it's indeed Jacqueline's car.
Dispatch, can you let Detective Gooden know that we've located the vehicle?
The officers on the scene first theorized the car was parked there because it had been stolen during a robbery of some sort. But that was quickly thrown out.
Look, there's a purse in the back.
Why would the thief take the car and not the purse?
Nothing was taken off of this car, so it couldn't have been a carjacking.
But the vehicle wasn't stolen. Why is it here? It is entirely possible that she started a new fling with someone in the area. The question is, who?
While officers pound the pavement in search of someone who might have seen Jacqueline, CSIs move her car away from the wall and begin the painstaking process of detailing Jacqueline's vehicle.
Crime scene investigators go over that car with a fine-tooth comb from outside to inside, dusted it for fingerprints, tried to get any sort of evidence they possibly could out of that car.
You got him in the vehicle yet?
We're getting ready to open it up now.
And when CSIs pop the trunk, they make a discovery that hits them like a punch to the gut.
She had a rope around her neck, clothes disheveled. She had defensive bruises on her arms. Fingernails were broken. It was clear that there was a struggle.
The body is identified as that of Jacqueline Miller.
I lost it. I just fell completely out. Thank God my family was around to catch me, but it was too much for me.
I broke down. I was hurt. I just couldn't believe that someone would do such a vicious act to a person.
I was devastated. And I was devastated for Jacqueline's mother. Not only was this her only daughter, it was her only child. It's a feeling that no one can understand unless you're being put in that predicament.
With the discovery of Jacqueline's body, Sergeant Kevin Lundy from the Homicide Bureau is assigned to the case.
It was shocking. I mean, you see this beautiful girl that's no longer with us. She's obviously been placed there against her will.
The rope was tied around her neck. The ends were cut very short, which would indicate that it was cut after it was tied.
This suggested that the killer was clever. They knew the rope might contain their DNA, and they wanted to remove it.
This seems like a well-orchestrated murder by someone who knew exactly what they were doing.
But for all their well-planned efforts to cover their tracks, the killer hasn't thought of everything.
It appeared that Jacqueline had a struggle with someone, and her fingernails were broke, but what was left there, I wanted to be able to collect that DNA from under her fingernails.
There was also blood on the shirt as well as the panties that were found on the scene.
Samples are sent to the crime lab for analysis. Meanwhile, Sergeant Lundy redoubles the canvassing efforts around the area where Jacqueline was found.
The hope is to find anyone who may have seen anything of interest.
The amped-up search pays off when Sergeant Lundy learns the apartment complex has a courtesy officer named Fred Anderson.
His job is to maintain security and look for anything out of the ordinary on the parking lot.
Do you ever recall when this vehicle first arrived on the lot?
I do. I saw it pull in.
You did?
I sure did.
The security officer had noticed someone pulling in the apartment. He never had seen him before that day. And so that's what caught his attention.
Can you tell me what you saw?
Well, driver definitely was alone. It was a male.
Mr. Anderson gave a very detailed description of the person that got out of the car.
He was a tall guy, maybe 5'11", 6 feet, possibly. Pretty fit guy.
The description is one that doesn't exactly match Richard Dickerson or Malik Davis. And unfortunately, there's no surveillance footage of the complex. So making an ID off the information that Anderson provides is pretty much impossible.
The uncertainty leaves police unsure which way to go next with the investigation. But a series of strange revelations will soon help them bring a cold-blooded killer to justice.
She was hiding under the bed trying to scare him when he came in, confessing to him that he had killed Jacqueline.
Cell records, witness statements, everything backed up this bizarre story. After finding the body of 21-year-old Jacqueline Miller in the trunk of her car, Memphis police have begun piecing together the series of events that led to her murder.
It's clear that Jacqueline's murder was not a random act of violence. This was someone who knew Jacqueline and felt a great deal of rage toward her.
Authorities also knew that she likely had to have been killed on Wednesday, a day that she was due to spend with both of the men in her life.
While Sergeant Kevin Lundy and his team are waiting on the results of crime scene DNA analysis, a judge has granted them access to Jacqueline's cell phone records, as well as those of Richard Dickerson and Malik Davis.
Richard's cell phone was off most of the day Wednesday, so it didn't seem like his cell phone records would be of much help.
But cell tower activity confirmed that Malik was essentially where he told police he was and never went anywhere near where the body was found.
But it's the activity of Jacqueline Miller's cell phone that sheds the most light on her whereabouts.
Jacqueline had actually called Richard several times during the day Wednesday and left a couple of voicemails about wanting to meet with him. That's made more interesting when police tracked her location.
She had actually gone to visit Richard at home on Wednesday afternoon, possibly to speak to him in person. We don't know if Richard was there, but we do know that shortly after arriving at his place, her phone was shut off.
It becomes even more suspicious when police note that Richard's cell phone is back on just a couple hours later. The first call he makes is to LaDonna Garfield asking if she's seen her niece.
First thing that the police begin to think is, maybe we skipped over the wrong person. Maybe we shouldn't have dismissed it.
With Richard Dickerson now the primary person of interest, police begin to seek out some of his friends for any new information.
Police start with the person closest to Richard, his best friend, Vincent Williams.
Vincent was Richard Dickerson's longtime friend. They confided in each other about just about everything.
Now, he's not of much help to police, but as they leave his house after questioning him, they're approached by his girlfriend.
The woman's name is Brittany Pearson, and what she tells police breaks the case wide open.
This is going to sound really, really weird, but I was at Vincent's house, and then Richard came over.
She was hiding under the bed. She was going to surprise her boyfriend. While she was hiding under the bed, she heard a conversation with her boyfriend, with Richard Dickerson.
Oh my God, I messed up, bro. I made a huge mistake.
Bro, what you do, bro?
My life is ruined, dog. I killed Jackie, bro.
Did what?
I killed Jackie.
She heard Richard crying and saying he didn't mean to do it. He went into great detail. He strangled her, put her in the car and all that.
What'd you do with the car?
I dumped it off in East Memphis at the apartment complex that Joey used to stay.
Oh, man.
She's shocked. Brittany's absolutely shocked.
They didn't know she was there. So then when they left, she's freaking out. Brittany hightailed it out of that apartment. She didn't want them to know that she was under that bed and hearing this.
I was so scared, and I didn't know what to do. I thought that if I said something that he would kill me too. So I waited 3 days, and then I called the police.
You did?
Yes, I made the phone call anonymously.
She went to a payphone outside of her neighborhood, dressed in different clothing, and she called that hotline where you called to make a tip and told them what she had heard.
Putting two and two together, investigators realize it was Brittany Pearson who called with that anonymous tip about Jacqueline's car being parked at the apartments. After speaking with Brittany, Sergeant Lundy obtains a search warrant for Richard Dickerson's home. While executing that warrant, they make a significant discovery in his tool shed of all places.
From a human eye, it appeared to be the same rope that was also around Jacqueline's neck.
So they take that rope and they submit it to the crime lab to be compared to the rope that was found around Jacqueline's neck.
After delivering the rope to the crime lab, Sergeant Lundy brings Richard Dickerson in for a second interview.
First, he was genuine. He acted like he wanted to try to help us and find out what was happening with Jacqueline.
Thank you for coming in and talking with us.
You know, I'll do anything to help find out who did this.
Once we got Richard obviously up to the office, he was trying to make an alibi of what had happened. So we started presenting inconsistencies to him as relates to his stories.
States in Sergeant Gooden's report the last time you saw Jacqueline was last Tuesday.
Yeah, we took a shower together, and then I went to the store. When I got back, she was going to work.
It's not what it says here.
It's clear to Sergeant Lundy that Richard Dickerson is not being entirely forthcoming. But without concrete evidence tying him to Jacqueline's murder, they can file no formal charges.
We didn't have the evidence at that time to prove that Richard killed Jacqueline Miller.
What detectives can do is keep Dickerson on a 48-hour administrative hold, while the inconsistencies in his story are examined more fully.
You stand up for me, please.
We sent several investigators, but there was no video, no one ever saw him there, so clearly he was lying.
Making matters worse for Richard, while they process him to be placed in a holding cell, police find something unusual.
A person from the jail found a note in his shoe.
The note was sort of a cheat sheet for what he was going to tell the police.
Basically, he wrote out a plan of how he was going to have alibis to cover what he did. If they ask me this is what I'm going to say.
Armed with this information, detectives interview Richard for a third and hopefully final time.
What can you tell me about this? Looks to me like a list of alibis.
Out of the clear blue, he jumps up and grabs that note and starts ripping it to shreds.
Now you got nothing, so what are you gonna do now?
I still have a copy of the note.
And after that, he was through talking to us.
Though Sergeant Lundy has a strong circumstantial case against Richard, they still lack the hard physical evidence that will give prosecutors the ammunition they need to formally charge him with murder.
While there was no DNA recovered from the rope found inside Dickerson's house, the lab was able to get a partial DNA profile from the rope found around Jacqueline's neck. And that was consistent with Richard, but it was not conclusive.
But when police received the final report on the DNA recovered from the clothing Jacqueline was wearing at the time she died, they hit pay dirt.
The blood that was found in the panties of Jacqueline was not hers, but Richard's.
That's how they were able to tie him to the crime.
On November 26, 2010, 9 days after Jacqueline Miller first disappeared, police charged Richard Dickerson with first-degree murder. But prosecutors know the case is anything but a slam dunk. And as the case heads to trial, a shocking revelation about Jacqueline's love life threatens to derail the entire proceeding.
Jackie was kind of quiet about the fact, but sometimes she would come home with visible bruises.
I was like, Jackie, why are you still hanging out with him? She's like, 'cause I love him. He told her that he was going to change, and that's what she believed.
For a lot of women, they want love. They want someone who's going to go and sweep them off their feet. They look for tall, dark, and handsome. No one says tall, dark, handsome, and violent. We say to ourselves, well, that couldn't happen to me. No, it can happen to you. It can surprise you.
In November 2010, prosecutors in Memphis, Tennessee have charged Richard Dickerson with the brutal murder of his on-again, off-again girlfriend, Jacqueline Miller.
Between hard forensic evidence, cell records, the cheat sheet found on Richard, and witness testimony, everyone felt this was going to be a really strong case. Still, though, it wasn't without its challenges.
Nobody can place him at the car at the time of the crime. The timeline is murky, plus juries can be pretty unpredictable.
As the trial date approaches, prosecutors dig into Richard and Jacqueline's relationship, hoping to find further proof of Richard's proclivity for violence.
Jacqueline was so beautiful and probably garnered a lot of attention, and I don't think Richard really knew how to take all that.
He was controlling. He didn't really want her to do anything with her friends. He didn't want her to have male friends.
Really good.
Thank you. So do you. I like it. What you doing after here?
Yes.
What are you doing?
What the hell are you doing talking to him?
I know him from high school.
I don't like him.
What's your problem?
According to investigators with the DA's office, over time, Richard's petty jealousy morphed into full-fledged physical abuse.
One such occasion was outside of a relative's house when Jacqueline tried breaking up with Richard.
She proceeded to walk up the driveway, and Richard grabbed her by the neck and, choked her down to the ground.
I told you not to turn your back on me.
You crazy!
Jacqueline runs into the house, but she kept that incident, along with many others like it, a secret from all but a few close friends.
I was like, Jackie, why are you still hanging out with him? She's like, 'cause I love him. You know, this is how people get killed. Going back, she said he is dangerous, but I'm going to be okay.
On July 20th, 2012, in a Shelby County courtroom, the state of Tennessee versus Richard Dickerson begins. Prosecutors open by presenting accounts of the physical abuse Jacqueline suffered at Richard's hands. Then, step by step, they spell out what they believe happened the day Jacqueline was murdered.
The coroner was able to determine that she had been killed sometime on Wednesday the 17th, the same time she was set to visit both Richard Dickerson and Malik Davis. Prosecutors felt she was planning to eventually see Davis, but wanted to end her relationship with Dickerson first.
She had driven her car to his house, parked out in front, went inside.
I can't do this with you.
What do you mean you can't do
I'm
this?
done.
You dumping me?
I'm done.
Prosecutors alleged that she was basically breaking it off with him at that point, and that he snapped and told her, if I can't have you, no one else is going to have you.
What the hell do you think you are?
She was going to leave him, and he's going, no, you're not. I'm going to kill you rather than let you leave. He gets a rope. He puts it around her neck, tight enough, and ties it so that she's not going to live. And then he put the body in the trunk and disposed of it. Then he drives it to an apartment complex on the other side of town. And then he has the thought, oh, they can see her license plate. So he turns around and goes back to the car, pulls it out, backs it up close to the fence, where he's seen by Mr. Anderson.
When it's their turn, Richard's defense team doesn't dispute the fact that their client killed Jacqueline Miller, but they put their own spin on why he did it.
His defense was, I didn't mean to kill her. I didn't do this on purpose. I just snapped, and she ended up dying.
To support their claim, they call Richard himself to the witness stand.
He said Jacqueline was a very violent person and that she would beat him up all the time. And he said she had come over to the house to talk about their relationship, and she told him that she wanted to break up with him. He said they argued about that, and she started to beat him up again.
Basically, he was trying to make it seem like it was self-defense.
I'm done with you. I'm done with you. You embarrassed me out there. I'm calling you such a punk, damn man. Baby, I'm married.
Please don't leave.
It's a tough story for a guy who is 6'5" and 205 pounds to sell about a woman who's 5'5" and 120 pounds trying to hurt him, because physically he can overpower her quite easily.
Richard claimed that he loved her and they were just having a misunderstanding, but we all knew different.
Apparently, so does the jury. Sort of. They find Richard Dickerson guilty of the lesser charge of second-degree murder.
When I heard the verdict, I was very upset. It was not what I expected.
Second-degree murder charge was just not right. It should have been first degree because I believe it was premeditated.
The judge sentences Richard to 25 years in prison without the possibility of parole, nearly the strictest sentence the charges allow. But for Jacqueline's family, it's still not enough.
You taking a life, they should have given him life. 25 years is short compared to I have a lifetime of dreams with her.
He's probably going to get out when he's got 50. And I can understand why they're unhappy with that. But I understand how juries think too. And that is a heat of passion crime. And you obviously have a passionate situation when you have people breaking up.
He didn't only just take away a person. He changed, he altered everyone's lives. The family, friends, children, everyone. She had dreams and goals, and she knew what she wanted to do, and he took her away from us.
Abuse is never okay. If you or someone you love is in an abusive relationship, there is help available. Call the Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE.